after we signed all the papers, Arlo's over there putting them all in his notebook, and I look at Kyle, and Kyle looks at me and he goes, "What did we just do?" I'm like, "I have no idea." I joke about how it's about, like, jumping off a cliff. And I think that you get sometimes so desperate that everything behind you's got so much pressure that you just have to jump. You realize you just have to jump.
Elda Ramirez knew from the age of 13 that the ER was where she wanted to be. That's when she started volunteering. Then she studied to become a bedside nurse. But she wanted more, so she went back to school, graduated, and got to work in San Antonio. There was much left to learn.
I was young and naive and just really, really headstrong, but I did know one thing. I did not, as a good ER nurse, know how to be a good ER nurse practitioner. And the doctors at University Hospital made it very clear to me that I was inferior in knowledge, in skill, and abilities. And when this opportunity came up, I think it was because of the struggles that I had as a nurse practitioner. And I'm good. I'm sorry. I was good.
You are good.
I was
you
good.
were good, and there was never
good.
any doubt about that.
But this was not good. This was not good. I was not doing good. I was going home every day, really nervous, really anxious, really uncomfortable. Like, wow, how do I not know this?
A former colleague in Houston, Arlo Weltke, had just seen how powerful the American College of Emergency Physicians had been in elevating the specialty for physicians. Nurse practitioners needed the same unified voice.
Elda, you need your own organization. Elda, you need your own organization.
So after many times that he had asked me to do this, I remember every time he said to me, I'm not gonna do that. That's too much work. I'm not gonna do that. That's too much work. I don't even know where to begin.
But Arlo was happy to help, and Elda had a former student, the late Kyle Kincaid, who would help bring AAENP to life.
I called people and I said, I need 10 years of your life and $1,500. Are you willing? And somehow, some way, we got that first group of founders and that first board. And at that point in time, I was just shocked that it was even happening. But the energy and the purpose was very clear.
Tapping in Arlo's prior experiences as past speaker for ACEP, AAENP appointed an inaugural board of directors and created bylaws to provide the structure for the new organization. The first AAENP meeting was held in Chicago alongside the ACEP scientific meeting in October of 2014.
We chose that date and time because we wanted to ensure that we positioned ourselves to interface with our physician colleagues and build relationships. Certainly with Arlo as the founder, we had an initial connection, but we were intentional in meeting with ACEP leaders to establish a presence and collaborate where we could. We did that quite successfully, and the support from ACEP leadership was substantial. I distinctly remember speaking to the ACEP Board of Directors after explaining our plans for a certification exam, and the current president at that time, Dr. Girardi, asked, "Where have you guys been?" And they welcomed the opportunity for an exam which would validate the unique knowledge and the skills for safe emergency care. Ultimately, they provided funding towards the creation of an ENP certification exam and assisted with the initial test construction.
As the overall number of NPs working in emergency care climbed, AAENP stepped up to make sure they had ways to obtain specialty knowledge and skills, and so employers could recognize their unique abilities. The Advanced Emergency Nursing Journal predated AAENP, but the two entities quickly merged their efforts. With Karen Sue Hoyt as its inaugural editor-in-chief, the peer-reviewed quarterly journal grew to gain an international presence, publishing manuscripts on emergency NP practice research, pharmacology, EKG, procedures, imaging, and dermatology. AAENP also published standards, assisted with the creation of certification exams, surveyed members, and created a validation program, advancing emergency practice year after year. Annual conferences brought clinicians together to promote evidence-based practices with an emphasis on practical applications, including procedural skills. While nurturing interdisciplinary teams through their conferences, the organization also began taking bolder positions to advocate for state licensure opportunities for emergency nurse practitioners. Leaders published a position statement on re-envisioning the ENP in November of 2020.
The absence of ENP licensure hinders state regulation, contributes to role ambiguity during hiring and credentialing processes with employers, and raises concerns about reimbursement. These issues have the potential to limit patients' access to care. Comprehensive practice analyses in a growing body of literature emphasize that ENPs possess a unique set of knowledge, behaviors, and scopes of practice that do not align with a single existing population foci. In this case, the consensus model suggests that a new APRN population focus may emerge. Proper alignment of education, certification, and licensure is crucial for NPs providing emergency care, as it is integral to the future of healthcare delivery. This statement was updated and reaffirmed in March of 2023 and ultimately endorsed by AAENP Certification Board and also the National Association of Clinical Nurse Specialists. This particular statement represents the very first time that AAENP expressed a firm opinion on the role that ENPs play, and it was the springboard to furthering conversations nationally to support the movement of ENPs to an entry-level NP population, which ultimately allows for state recognition and licensure.
Even amid the challenges faced by emergency medicine during COVID, AAENP found ways to pivot and continue growing, all while remaining almost exclusively volunteer-driven. An annual scholarship launched to honor Kyle Kincaid by supporting graduate students in pursuit of emergency NP specialty education. During the upheaval of the pandemic, the organization attained broader recognition from the national group representing advanced practice registered nurses being added to the LACE network to provide a voice for emergency NPs among nursing licensure, accreditation, certification, and education organizations. AAENP partnered with Springer Publishing to produce a new curricular text for graduate ENP programs and rebranded the annual conference to elevate its profile.
As an organization, AAENP initiatives moving forward are really focused at providing support for ENPs in practice. There are multiple ways that we can do this with educational initiatives that we have been doing. I suspect you'll see AAENP leading research initiatives that describe ENP outcomes and also the practice. One of the biggest hurdles currently for ENPs is the lack of state licensure. It's really not surprising though when you consider that emergency physicians took nearly a decade to get to a recognized status. So I've been proud to watch AAENP grow from this new organization with a handful of members to a national organization with established connections among other stakeholder organizations. Early on, we used to say that one of our goals as we grew would be to, quote, be at the table and not at the menu or not on the menu. So a decade later, we're there. Consistently now, AAENP has a presence in the national landscape of emergency care. We're speaking and advocating for emergency NPs. And from this work, ENPs are increasingly recognized as having a unique knowledge base and a unique skill set. This is why AAENP has been engaged with national leaders from the APRN LACE network to explore how we can move forward the vision of ENP as a population. And I'm so excited to see what the next decade will hold.
Nurse practitioners have evolved ever since their origins in 1965. And even with more than 350,000 NPs licensed in the United States, more will be needed as the U.S. population ages and to fill gaps in access to care in underserved communities. Emergency departments, as they continue to be under reimbursement pressure, will need to depend on highly trained nurse practitioners. And as more is asked of NPs, AAENP will be behind them.
As an emergency nurse practitioner myself, knowing that I have a group of people out there that is worried about me, the provider. I'm the one who's working maybe in a hostile environment with a group of people that don't treat me well, or maybe I'm working in a rural area and I need to have certain skill sets that maybe weren't taught to me in my program. The fact that in a court of law today, if any of us get thrown in a court of law, guess what? Those competencies that your organization fought so hard to create, they're establishing your practice and they're going to be protecting you. That's the difference.
In 1 decade, AAENP turned from an idea into an institution. Its leaders are now guiding a recognized specialty into the future.
And this is what fascinates me about success. You and I don't even go to board meetings anymore. We don't have to. We did what we needed to do and established an organization with people who really cared.
The passion needed to establish AAENP has inspired a new generation of leaders who recognize the hard work required to get the organization off the ground and establish a firm foundation.
And I didn't end up on splatting on the ground when I jumped off the cliff. And what's so funny is that I didn't fly by myself. I had about 12 people flying with me. So it made a huge difference to all of us. And it's been a great journey.
And let me just finish. I think all of you that are emergency nurse practitioners watching this ought to be proud. Your professional organization representing you is a respected organization that is really leading the specialty and leading the practice. And my compliments to the current leaders and the past leaders that have been through there. But they have taken the responsibility. They've worked with their colleagues, including the College of Emergency Physicians. I think we all should be proud of where emergency medicine has come from and where we are today.
Bravo. Thank you, Arlo.
Thank you. I just wish you would have listened to me sooner.